Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones, back here today for the first time in 2022. Happy New Year to you all. Wishing you a safe, happy, and healthy 2022. As we're here today, Purdue has wrapped up 2021 in spectacular fashion, a dramatic 48-45 win over Tennessee in the Music City Bowl. The Boilers finished with 9 wins for the first time since 2003. And as we look ahead to 2022, optimism is sky high. We're talking all football here today. Yes, I know basketball resumes Big Ten play Monday versus Wisconsin, and they begin the quest for Big Ten championship number 25. But we're devoting the episode today to putting a wrap on the excellent season that was for Purdue football and start to take a little bit of a peek forward up to next year. Before we get going here, follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. Make sure you see plenty of notes, news, analysis from games, all of that good stuff there on Twitter. Subscribe to Boilers and Beyond wherever you get your podcasts if you don't already. New episodes every week. Basketball season's getting into the heart right now. You don't want to miss anything, so be sure to subscribe so it shows up there for right in your podcast feeds. And finally, want to get 2022 off to a huge start? You got any Boilermaker friends or family in your life? Send the show their way. We'd love to grow this audience even more in 2022. You all are the best way to do it. You helped tremendously in 2021. Would love to see what we can do this year in 22. All right, diving into what was probably the best game of the bowl season, sitting right there with the Ohio State-Utah Rose Bowl, was the Music City Bowl. Purdue 48, Tennessee 45 in overtime, 93 total points, nearly 1,300 yards of total offense, plenty of controversy, a slew of huge moments, so much to talk about from this game, and there was so much to talk about before the teams even took the field. Weeks ago, we knew that David Bell and George Karlaftis would not be playing in the game, and if you saw TJ Sheffield's injury in the end zone of the Music City Bowl, that's exactly why Bell and Karlaftis didn't play in the bowl game. If you saw what happened to Matt Corral in the Sugar Bowl last night, that's exactly why Bell and Karlaftis did not play in this bowl game. It makes complete sense. They did the right thing for their careers, and ultimately, that's what they have to do. But a few days before the game, though, once the team got to Nashville, it was announced that Milton Wright, Dedrick Mackey did not make the trip, and that Greg Long was doubtful for the game, and that was an even bigger blow in my book, because you kind of had a feeling that Bell and Karlaftis would opt out. I don't know that all that many people figured that Purdue would be without 3 other starters. Now, with Milton Wright, that has been pretty widely reported at this point that it's academic in nature. That's something huge to monitor this offseason. Milton Wright is a very good receiver, and if this is something that could be career-ending for him at Purdue, that's significant. Dedrick Mackey, who knows? His Purdue career is over, though. He announced he's not doing the COVID year. He's headed to the NFL. So Dedrick Mackey out. There's your 4th starter out. Greg Long was doubtful. He did not end up playing. So Purdue comes in without 5 starters on paper. And then the day before the game, a Indianapolis TV reporter tweets out that Aiden O'Connell has COVID and wouldn't be playing. Very rarely are you going to find TV sources that are the first report on things related to college sports. That's just not generally how things work in any market, really. And especially in this market, in the Purdue media base, if it's not Golden Black or it's not Mike Carmen from the JNC, I would have some questions. And that's where we were at here. Rumors flying around. Many bowls had been canceled because of COVID already. I think 3 or 4 of them were. Clearly that wasn't true. If you watched the game, as I'm sure you all did, Aiden O'Connell did not have COVID, though Branson Dean and OC Brothers did miss the game due to health and safety protocols. That can mean a number of different things. Not here to speculate. All that really matters at the end is they didn't play, and hopefully they're doing okay. So you have all of that before the game itself. Plenty of roster questions. And then early on, I thought Purdue was in pretty serious trouble. You're dealing with serious speed at wide receiver. Tennessee had Cedric Mitchell and Velus Jones Jr., who could really run at wide receiver. And you're having Jamari Brown and Sanusi Kane, your number 3 and your number 4 corners on them. Early on in the game, Hendon Hooker connected on a few deep balls, and that had me worried. As the game went on, we saw that was unsustainable. He missed on pretty much every deep ball from there on out. I had to wonder early on about the depleted receiving core. Brock Thompson was struggling to get around. You're playing guys who don't have much experience. You had to worry early on. When it was 21-7 Tennessee, I thought Purdue was in serious trouble. Then when they kept settling for field goals in the first half, second quarter there, I thought that was what was going to do Purdue in. But it didn't. Jeff Brohm was absolutely brilliant in this game. And I say that because he is the play caller and he is the mastermind behind this offensive scheme. You know, you're seeing TJ Sheffield on the outside a lot in this game. He's a slot receiver. He doesn't play outside. You have Brock Thompson preparing for surgery on both his knees. He can barely get off the field after plays. 217 yards, wins the MVP of this game. Very well-deserved from that end. He was fantastic. Colin Sullivan is out there a bunch. He'd barely seen the field this year. Same thing for Andrew Sawinski and Deion Burks. Burks had a massive catch late in the game. You know, Brohm was just able to scheme success in this game without the players that he normally schemes success for. He stuck to the run. He did it well enough. Purdue ran the ball okay. This was not a defense that Purdue was going to, run for, the 160 yards they did against Indiana or whatever. That wasn't going to happen in this game. But he stuck to the run. The run game produced. Offensive line was excellent. They kept O'Connell upright throughout most of the game. That was huge. O'Connell was pretty good. He certainly wasn't great in this game. 3 picks, that's not ideal. Purdue got lucky that didn't come back to hurt. But when you look at him, the first one is a different story if you have a bigger outside receiver than TJ Sheffield. That didn't help. Second and third ones were poor decisions. So be it. That is pretty clearly O'Connell trying to do too much. And with the roster limitations that Purdue had, can't necessarily fault the guy. He was trying to go out there and will this team to victory. He ended up doing it. But with his 3 interceptions in this game, it's important to point out, and I know some folks on Twitter have made this point as well. Drew Brees threw a ton of interceptions at Purdue. And I'm not comparing O'Connell to Brees, but folks don't remember Drew Brees' 4 interceptions from the Holy Toledo game against Ohio State. They remember the bomb to Seth Morales to win it. Sometimes the interception total, especially in college, doesn't necessarily tell you the story of the game. And that's the case with Aiden O'Connell in this one. The 5 touchdowns tell you the story of his game. Made some very high-level throws. That ball across the middle to Payne Durham that ended up in the long touchdown run. Beautiful. That was very nice. Couple of deep balls, very well thrown. The one to Brock Thompson that ended up in a touchdown was beautiful. He capped off a fantastic year in a fantastic way on a big stage. Credit to O'Connell there. The defense did enough, and I know that is a little bit weird to say after they gave up 650 some odd yards in this game, but the defense never quit, and they had every reason to. 111 snaps from Tennessee, that's insane. Purdue was subbing in and out all day. You saw a lot of names on the field for significant plays that you hadn't seen on the field even for insignificant plays this year. Prince Boyd, Jeff Marks, Khalees Saunders, Sanusi Kane. Sanusi Kane had to start, was really good, only allowed 2 receptions. And that's a guy who played safety up until this year when he started getting trained at corner. I mean, that was incredible. Yes, Purdue gave up plenty of big plays. Jamari Brown gave up a lot of big plays, but this defense never quit. Tennessee had every opportunity in the third quarter to bust this one open. O'Connell's 2 interceptions really hurt. They had every opportunity to run away with it, and the defense never quit. Purdue kept rising up. 4th down stop. When it was 31-30, I think, Chris Jefferson gets there to stop them on 4th and 1. I mean, just a number of massive plays from Purdue in this one. Part of what made this memorable, and if you were there, you certainly experienced this to a whole new level. This was a de facto home crowd for Tennessee. I think 80% orange is probably putting it a little conservatively. It was a lot of Tennessee folks there, and those fans are nuts. I was in Purdue area seating, and you were still seeing Tennessee fans in the area getting in fights, being escorted out, throwing things on the field. The people are lunatics. I don't really know what else to say, and I know it's never fair to lump all fans from a fan base into one, but between that and then what I saw from Tennessee people out on Broadway after the game, the people aren't the nicest group, and that made this even more memorable for Purdue, was dealing with that Tennessee crowd, especially when they got on their tangents of booing Purdue players who were down and injured. Now, was Purdue faking these injuries? I don't know. I have no idea. It's hard to accuse someone of faking an injury. Just from a moral and ethical standpoint, I think that's a little bit tough, especially when Tennessee moves as fast as they do. A lot of these looked like cramps. That would make sense. On the flip side, this has been a common theme for Tennessee opponents this year. That is what kind of led to the disaster against Ole Miss when, the game was delayed for 15 minutes because fans at Neyland could not stop throwing things on the field. But whether it was fake or not, Tennessee fans doing this doesn't help much. It's not a great look, and it made this win all the bit sweeter for Purdue. And the other part of this game and the controversy was the 4th and goal from the 1. And I'm talking about Tennessee's first possession in overtime, where they had already gone for it on 4th and 2 from about the 17. They got really lucky. Purdue was in the backfield and couldn't wrap up on Hooker and couldn't really get their arms around him at all to begin with. Karlaftis is on the field. Purdue has the ball back and it's tied. At that point, with nothing further, I guess Purdue ended up getting the ball back tied anyways. But Tennessee shouldn't have really been in that position to begin with. Got the ball on Purdue territory with like 15 seconds left. Hooker takes 2 deep shots in a row, trying to get 6 instead of improving your field goal position. Then you trot out your kicker for a 56-yarder. Kicker hasn't made from longer than like 48 on the season. Kick doesn't get there. That's on Josh Heupel. That's on Hendon Hooker. That's difficult. On the play, the 4th and 1 play, was his forward progress stopped? It's tough. It's close. But if you're playing that game, Tennessee has a wide receiver trying to pull the ball carrier across the goal line. That's also illegal. It was a bizarre play. I know Tennessee fans were incredibly upset about it. Don't necessarily know what to tell you there, but that's just, again, another part of this that makes the win sweeter. And it was just so big for Purdue to do this as shorthanded as they were. And if you've been listening to this for a while, I'm not afraid to admit when I was wrong. I said before this game, I did not think Purdue was in a very good spot here. I thought Purdue was in trouble. Even before the game, if Purdue was fully healthy, I still had some concerns. I still had some worries about Purdue's ability to hang with an SEC team. I am generally a big believer in the SEC. I reference it a lot, that 24/7 talent composite says a lot, and it plays out on the field quite a bit. This wasn't the best look for it. Purdue has significantly less recruiting ranking talent than Tennessee. Purdue still won the game. It was a remarkable performance, and it's good exposure on a big stage. I know there's been all sorts of discussion lately about what bowl games mean and what the future of bowl games looks like, because you've had the opt-outs and you've had a number of teams that go into bowl games and just look like they've completely quit. And this was the opposite of that. These two teams played incredibly hard. These two teams used it like it was a reward for a good season. You saw what Purdue's offense can do. And this was an incredibly shorthanded Purdue offense. But that's your identity. Purdue's identity and their heart and soul is in the passing game. It's in the offense. And you saw a great offensive performance. It was a standalone game, at least I think. I don't think there was another game on at the same time. If there was, everyone had turned it to Purdue, Tennessee, once they realized what was going on. The second half, overtime, was after a lot of folks had gotten off work, so you had a lot of eyeballs on this. You had a lot of college football media that was watching this and tweeting about it, from the national writers. And I guess the downside is it was right before the playoff, the day before, so didn't get as much media attention in the long haul. But you win a game like this in front of 69,000 people in Nashville, you are getting a boost for your program. However big or small it may be, it's a boost. This is probably the biggest bowl win for Purdue since 1998. That Alamo Bowl against Kansas State, legendary stuff there. Pretty remarkable game to cap off what was a pretty remarkable season, all things considered. The season as a whole, wanted to spend some time here. Sorry, I just took a sip of water. Wanted to spend some time here with some season-long takeaways, because 9 wins in a season for the first time since 2003 came at a time that Purdue really needed it. 2019 and 2020 had halted a lot of the momentum, at least, from a outsider's point of view, had halted a lot of the momentum that Purdue had built up in Jeff Brohm's first two seasons. 2017 and 2018 were good years. 2017 was flat out incredible. Anyone who had lived through the Darrell Hazel years could see that. Could see that the program had come so far in a span of 9 months from the end of, I guess, the Jared Parker interim era down in Bloomington to when Purdue gave Lamar Jackson and Louisville all he could handle. You know, the program had come so far in that time. You won that Foster Farms Bowl in 2017. 2018 was a bit of a roller coaster, but the peaks of that roller coaster were insane. You beat Ohio State, you beat Iowa, you got back to another bowl, got your butt kicked in the bowl, but now this season had a much different feel because 2017 was a lot of trick plays, a lot of graduate transfer, junior college transfer, infused talent that paid off. But there was a lot there that wasn't ideal. Now you're seeing a lot of depth built up. You're seeing a lot of the depth that's built up show to help Purdue have a great season. Purdue withstood some pretty legitimate injuries this year. Xander Horvath breaks his leg against UConn, like on the first drive of the game against UConn. Jaquez Cross then leaves the team around end of September, goes and deals with personal stuff. So you're down to King Daru and Dylan Downing as your only options at running back for a while. Jackson Anthrop then slides in a little bit to help out. Mershawn Rice and Abdur-Rahman Yassin barely played this year, and they had looked primed to contribute to the receiving room. They looked good when they were out there. They both, did either of them make it past the bye week? I'm trying to remember. Maybe they played against Minnesota. I don't think any of them made it past the bye week, though, into that Wisconsin game. That was tough. Or into the Iowa game, after the bye. David Bell has a scary-looking injury up at Notre Dame and only misses one game, comes right back. Payne Durham, Garrett Miller are both nicked up at times at tight end, and they had excellent years. That comes after Jack Kravick, your number 3 tight end, who kind of played that H-back role, hurts his knee, out for the year up at Notre Dame. That's not ideal. The tight end room fought through that. Offensive line health was a huge positive. They improved throughout the year. There is no coincidence that they improved throughout the year and they were healthy throughout the year. There is a very strong correlation there. Defensive side was healthier. DeMarcus Mitchell had a odd season. I really thought he was going to be very important for Purdue this year. And while he had good performances, Indiana game, Tennessee game obviously was great for him. He didn't have the year I thought he would. Meanwhile, Kydron Jenkins was excellent in that spot. You saw that depth show as a guy who wasn't expected to be on the first deep, comes in and plays like a stud all year. If you had told me before the season that Corey Trice misses 11 of the 13 games, I'd have been very concerned about Purdue's secondary. They didn't have a problem. Excellent job by Dedrick Mackey, by Jamari Brown, by Chris Jefferson. They stepped up, and they were excellent. Purdue withstood a season that was really weird at quarterback. Jack Plummer starts from week 1 and did well. Jack Plummer won the Oregon State game. I think you could have put half the student body out there against UConn and won that game, but 49-0 win against UConn was nice. Look, I was wrong. Aiden O'Connell was an absolute stud. You saw him take over for good against Minnesota. He came in to win the Illinois game after he came in to try to come back miraculously and take the Notre Dame game. Plummer could have done some good things. I think this team could have still gotten to a bowl with Jack Plummer, but the offense, the ceiling, whatever ceiling the offense had with Jack Plummer was shattered when Aiden O'Connell came in because things just opened up so much more. The deep passing game opened up more. The intermediate passing game opened up more. You saw the multiple quarterback system a little bit. It happened against Iowa, and it was a big story. It came in progressively less each week after that, and by the time that Jack Plummer fumbled his only snap against Ohio State, the multi-quarterback system was done. We didn't see it again, but hey, you know what? The multi-quarterback system was a little fun talking point we had here for a few weeks on the show. You've got the news that O'Connell's going to return in 2022, capping off a weird, wild season at quarterback, but boy, does that position look good going into next year. The defensive staff changes were an absolute godsend. We've talked about it plenty, but I think the main case in point as to why this was so important was Jalen Graham this year. Bob Diaco didn't know how to use him right. He was probably a little bit raw for Nick Holt to use him right, but this year he was used at maximum efficiency. When he was out making plays in coverage, he was spectacular. He's a great coverage linebacker. He can track ball carriers down very well. He's very quick. He was a monster this year, and he plays with a swagger that lights up this entire defense. You saw it time and time again against Tennessee. The guy is in someone's face. He is celebrating a tackle. He's a fireball. The secondary, night and day better than it was in 2020, and you had largely the same guys out there. Outside of that secondary, too, the portal guys that Purdue brought in on defense weren't relied on very much. Out in the secondary, yeah, Jamari Brown and Chris Jefferson, the season doesn't happen without those guys. But O.C. Brothers, who I thought was going to play a ton, really didn't play much at all. Joe Anderson, Prince Boyd, DeMar J. Lewis, not a ton of action for those guys. Lewis played some. There wasn't a ton of time in that group, though, of the front seven guys that transferred in. You saw Mitchell Finneran become a great transfer portal addition. Mid-season slump, for sure. Missed a bad kick against Iowa. He missed against Nebraska, I think. But rock solid. Hit some massive kicks against Michigan State. Hit some massive kicks, including the game winner against Tennessee. He was a great addition. We'll see if he ends up coming back next year. That's going to be a position that, if he doesn't, Purdue may look to the portal again. I don't know. You don't hear much about what the backup kickers are looking like at practice. So can't say I know a lot there. But at the end of the day, Jeff Brohm got his mojo back. And it's time to seriously look at locking him up for a long time, get a contract extension done. I'm firmly in belief that Jeff Brohm is the guy. You haven't had a lot of the guys at Purdue when looking at head coaches in the past. You have one here. Go pay him. If something happens and he leaves, okay. But don't let him leave for another job without bucking up and giving it your best to keep him. I think right now he's signed through 2025. I think you ought to look at maybe the turn of the decade to extend him there. I think he's in that good of shape. And the defensive staff is going to be key. I know minutes before I hit record here, there's a report out from Football Scoop that Virginia is interested in Brad Lambert. Tony Elliott came over from Clemson. He's interested in Lambert. Okay. Okay, so be it. It's an honor to have your assistants wanted to be poached, but try to pay them. See if you can't give a raise to that defensive staff to put more money in that assistant coaching pool, because that's a huge part of why this season was a success. You have a good group. See if you can't get more money there. Go pay them and go lock them up. Now, looking ahead, way too early 2022 outlook is as optimistic as I think you've had good reason to be for a while. Aiden O'Connell coming back gives Purdue stability and a known commodity there at quarterback that Jeff Brohm hasn't always had. You had the Elijah Sindelar and David Blau wheel of quarterbacks for a bit. You had Jack Plummer and Aiden O'Connell going back and forth. Now you just have O'Connell. You have a guy. And having that continuity going into the offseason should really help. You have King Daru coming back. He finished the season really strong. I think you have to like what he can do moving forward. And then Samson James becomes eligible, the Indiana transfer. That's going to be big, I think. You don't always know what to expect, but I think he's going to be a nice addition. Never know, too, if there's another transfer that could come in there, since the guy from Cal backed out of his commitment to Purdue. You return 3 starting offensive linemen. You get Spencer Holstedge at left guard, Gus Hartwig at center, Eric Miller right tackle back. You get Cam Craig back, who played a lot. So you have almost 4 starting offensive linemen back, only 3 real starters. See if Miller stays at right tackle or moves over to left. But regardless, you have some good pieces on the offensive line back. You lose some pieces on defense. You get a lot back, though. Sure, you lose. George Karlaftis is massive. Losing Jalen Alexander's big. Losing Kyron Douglas is important. Losing DeMarcus Mitchell doesn't help. Dedrick Mackey, your final starter that's gone there, but you get back your 2 guys in the middle, Lawrence Johnson, Branson Dean. You get Kydron Jenkins back at Leo. Jalen Graham comes back for a big year at linebacker. Jamari Brown's back. I think Chris Jefferson's back. You got Cam Allen and Marvin Grant, both back at safety. Hopefully Trice comes back full strength off that knee surgery. We already mentioned Finneran. You have a ton of receiver talent. Milton Wright is key to monitor. If he's back, that's your number 1 receiver. If he's not, you're looking elsewhere. There are a lot of other pieces that are really good. TJ Sheffield and Brock Thompson appear to be coming off of injuries. Sheffield's injury didn't look good in the bowl game. I don't know what it is yet. I haven't heard any type of diagnosis, but with 2 knee surgeries coming up for Brock Thompson, that can't be a breeze. You want to get those guys back. And then one thing I wanted to point out, speaking of injuries, was really good to notice Antonio Stevens dressed for the bowl game. That was awesome to see. He had a brutal injury against Nebraska in 2020. To see him back dressed, I don't know if he was dressed before the Music City Bowl at all, but I noticed it against Tennessee. Great to see him on the sidelines. He was fired up as well. So you're monitoring some of that. Trice, Wright, Sheffield, Thompson, all that is important to monitor. But as you go into next year, you feel really good about this team, and you bring in Penn State week 1, that is going to be a very highly anticipated game. That's going to be one that when the national folks look at the week 1 slate during the offseason, they're going to bring up Penn State at Purdue. That will almost certainly be a sold-out crowd. I don't know when that game will be, but there's a lot of options. in terms of time of day. That's a big one. Penn State's talented. Yes, they're deep. They have more talent and they have more depth than Purdue does. Purdue has the better quarterback. Purdue has some really, really good players. You have home field advantage. That's a game Purdue has a good chance in. The non-conference sets up favorably. You don't draw Michigan, Michigan State, or Ohio State. We'll see come May or June when those season win totals start coming out from Vegas. What's Purdue going to be looking at? 7.5, 8 maybe? I don't know that it's going to be higher than 8, but this 2022 season going to be very highly anticipated, and I think fans are going to be very in tune to football during the offseason, more so than they probably have been for a while. That's all I've got for this football season. Thank you for all the time you've spent listening to the show here, talking Purdue football with me since back in August. But don't worry, we're not going anywhere. Basketball will dominate the show from here on out in the season, hopefully up until April. Knock on wood. Be sure to subscribe to Boilers and Beyond wherever you get your podcasts so that you don't miss that basketball coverage. And be sure to follow Boilers and Beyond on Twitter. Updates on Purdue basketball. Updates on the football transfer portal. That's always active. We've seen Anthony Rumpf, Dante Hunter hop in the portal recently. There's going to be more to come. Don't worry. Be sure to follow on Twitter to keep track of that. Next week, we'll be back here right in the swing of Big Ten basketball. Until then, get the new year started strong, folks.